Well, this is day 2 of the AgResource crop tour here with Jim Quinton, our crop scout, and Harry McCune, our client and farmer. And we're looking at soybeans and corn. This is the final stop in Peoria County. Yep. And so we started today in Marshalltown, went south, hooked back north. And what impressions did you guys have of the southern crop area?
I think the thing we noticed is, as we left Marshalltown, the corn was still in pretty good shape, but maybe as we came down towards the Burlington area and that part of southeast Iowa was more variable. The soybeans kind of overall throughout the day, I would say more or less unimpressed. Some fields we saw were pretty decent, but most of them I would say were ho-hum overall. And corn has been kind of the same way. Some surprises definitely to the downside, I would say, just like the one we stop at right now.
Yep.
And once again, kernel dip looks like it could be a pretty big issue. That'd be my take on the day.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Jim?
Our soybean observations are the ones that are a little more interesting, at least as far as telling us something. There's a story, and we can't figure exactly why, but we've got a couple of good thoughts. The number of nodes on the stalk are deficit north of here in what I'd largely call a group 2 soybean zone. And as we crossed the Mississippi and came into Illinois and went south down toward Beardstown, Illinois, we came into a couple of fields that were definitely a group 3 bean, and they were not deficit in nodes. They had 23, 24 nodes and plenty of pods at each node. So that was kind of a question mark. Was as we went south and got into a later group variety, would that make a difference in the nodes? And the answer appears to be yeah, because since we left Beardstown, we've come north all the way up to Kewanee, and we found a couple of group 2 fields that only had 15 nodes, which is about a 5 to 7 node deficit. So that's been the interesting story. What's causing it, we'd like to know exactly, but we've got a couple of ideas that seem to fit.
But we need to get another day under our belt in terms of scouting, some more data, so we'll be out again tomorrow. And again, we're trying to understand the demarcation line of where, of course, the deficit starts in nodes going forward, because that'll help us work backwards into production and supply and how many acres are affected. Again, we're doing this because of the crop tour next week. Chip and his team and all the people will be out here looking. We think we know the areas where they'll be making lower soybean pod counts, but if you're in a group 3 bean, to Jim's point, it is going to be generally average and there's still some blooms. A lot of other things have shut down. My only other observations about what these gentlemen have just said, and I think they've been great observations, is that this crop is along. Corn is well along in dent. I'm not seeing a risk after a couple weeks of heat and some dryness coming up here that we're really being looked at a late frost or any kind of frost event as harming production. So I think that's off the table, if you will. Soybeans possibly, but even there with the group 2s, they're done blooming. This crop is what it is, and we're kind of understanding it as we go forward. So
one thing I just want to add real quick is, as we went through all this drought, so to speak, or lack of rain here, we talked about corn being shorter, and a lot of people would say, well, the corn, even though it's short, it still can yield well. But from our noticing, from what we've seen, it's the fields that we go into that are taller, have the vegetative growth, that are the best looking cornfields, right, Dan?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Have the best numbers.
The ones that fight back, those cornfields that fight back as you go into them, are the ones that the better yields are coming. So I keep coming back. This is an average corn crop. It's not a great corn crop. It's not a bad corn crop. It's average. We'll try to figure out what yields means with some more data, but I think that's what we're seeing. The big concern, however, is still this pod count and node count on soybeans and group 2s, probably north of I-80, and that's what we need to understand a little better. Okay, thank you all. As group day 2 was a big success. Again, we'll come back with closing statements tomorrow, but we're really understanding this crop and trying to better know what weather has applied to it going forward. Harry and James, thanks again.
You're welcome.